y para contestar todas sus preguntas de inmigración. So, si tienen algunas preguntas de inmigración, puede poner sus preguntas en los comentarios y puedo tratar de contestar en más preguntas que puedo. Pero recuerda que en este tipo de situación en vivo, en Facebook y TikTok y Instagram, puedo contestar solamente preguntas en generales. No puedo dar una opinión legal sobre qué debe hacer en su caso. Si quiere una opinión legal de qué debe hacer en su caso, tiene que llamarme para programar una consulta donde podemos hablar en privado sobre todos los detalles de su situación y puedo dar mi opinión de qué debe hacer y cómo yo puedo ayudar en su caso. Pero aquí ahorita puedo contestar cualquier pregunta en general que tienen. So si tienen algunas preguntas, puede poner sus preguntas de inmigración en los comentarios y puede poner las preguntas en inglés o en español, en cualquiera de los dos idiomas, ¿ok? Y voy a explicar eso también en inglés. So if you have any immigration questions, I can answer any of your immigration questions here, general immigration questions. If you have a question, you can write it in the comments here in either TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, and I will try to answer as many of those questions as I can. But just remember that in this type of situation, I can only give general advice, general information about immigration. I cannot give you a legal opinion about what you should do in your case. If you want legal advice regarding what you should do in your situation, then you would need to call my office and schedule a consultation with me, and we can have a private discussion regarding all the details of your situation and also what options I see that are available in your case. If you would like to schedule a consultation, our phone number is 772-539-8400. So you can call my office and schedule a consultation if you need legal advice regarding your case. But here, any questions you have, I can answer some of your general questions. All right, and I already I have a question here on Facebook from Esteban. It says, si tengo a little bit in English and Spanish. ¿Sí? Si tengo un reckless driving, can I apply for DACA alone? So if for someone with a reckless driving charge, can they apply for DACA? So in general, yes, you normally would be able to with reckless driving. If you had a DUI, then it would be a different situation. You would not qualify for DACA. But I believe in most circumstances, reckless driving would be okay. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to have an immigration attorney just review the details of your case. Of course, different states have different the statutes are written differently, so it wouldn't hurt to have an attorney review it just to make sure. But in general, I would say usually that would not be a problem. All right. And Buff Up on TikTok is asking, what do you think will further happen with DACA? So as of right now, of course, they are accepting new DACA applications after this court order that happened in December. There's still some pending litigation in our court in Texas, and we're waiting for a decision to see if they're going to try to take away DACA again. But we are hopeful that, of course, after January 20th, hopefully at least DACA, the way that we know it, will be safe once we have a new president and an administration that is not going to be trying to take away DACA, at least from as far as we know so far. Of course, I know Biden has also announced plans that he would like to come up with a path to residency and eventually citizenship for people that qualify for DACA, but that's not something that he can do on his own. That would require legislation that would have to be passed through Congress and through the Senate. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I think, based on what I know, I think DACA as we know it right now should be safe with this administration. So I think it would continue for anyone who qualifies. I think it's definitely a good idea to apply. And if you have any questions about whether you qualify or if you have enough documents, then you can call and schedule a consultation with me. And I can look at all your documents and discuss the qualifications. Okay. Para explicar eso en español, la pregunta era de qué pienso que va a pasar con DACA. Ahorita Migración está aceptando nuevas aplicaciones de DACA basado en la decisión de la Corte Federal el mes pasado, en diciembre, pero todavía hay otros casos en otro corte, especialmente de un caso que está en Texas ahorita, donde un juez está considerando si él quiere hacer un orden para quitarlo al programa de DACA. No sabemos cuándo vamos a tener esa decisión de este juez, pero de cualquier manera, después del 20 de enero, cuando entre el nuevo presidente Biden, DACA debe estar aquí para quedar. No estoy preocupado sobre el programa de DACA. Yo sé que también él está pensando de hacer algo para como un camino a la residencia, a la ciudadanía para personas que tienen DACA y que califican para DACA, pero eso es algo que él no puede hacer solo, ¿no? Él va a necesitar la ayuda del Congreso para pasar una nueva ley por eso. Pero por lo menos DACA, como vemos ahorita, como está ahorita, no pienso que eso va a cambiar. Okay, yo pienso que eso debe estar bien. Y para revisar un poquito los requisitos para DACA. Para calificar por DACA tiene que probar que tenía menos de 31 años el 15 de junio de 2012. Tiene que probar que entró al país antes del 15 de junio de 2007 y que cuando entró al país que tenía menos de 16 años. Tiene que probar que estuve aquí desde el 15 de junio de 2007 hasta ahorita. Tiene que probar que no tiene un récord criminal que puede afectar. Por ejemplo, no puede tener DUI, no puede tener cargo de violencia doméstica, de tráfico en drogas. Y tiene que probar que es graduado de escuela aquí o que ahorita está registrado en la escuela. Y la escuela ahorita puede ser un programa de inglés también, para aprender inglés, o un programa para estudiar, para tomar el examen de GED. Si no terminó escuela, no preocupa. Siempre hay opciones para registrar ahorita en un programa de educación por adultos para calificar por DACA. Okay, si tiene preguntas sobre si califica o no, puede llamarnos y hacer una cita donde podemos hablar sobre toda su situación y yo puedo dar una opinión legal sobre su caso. Ok, y César Ruiz está preguntando, ¿usted de asesoría de DACA aunque yo viva en otro estado? Sí, por supuesto. Mi oficina principal técnicamente está en Florida, pero porque migración es una ley federal, yo puedo representar clientes en todos los estados, no importa dónde viven, especialmente ahorita también por la situación de COVID, también por los clientes locales. Estamos haciendo la mayoría de las cosas por teléfono, por correo electrónico y por correo, realmente no sería una diferencia grande. Si quiere programar una consulta, podemos hablar sobre sus opciones. Y mi número de teléfono de nuevo es 772-539-8400. Sí, César puede llamarme y podemos poder programar una cita y ver qué podemos hacer. Y otra cosa sobre DACA. DACA sí es algo muy bueno, ayuda a mucha gente con protección de deportación y permiso de trabajo y también por la licencia. Pero siempre cuando tenemos a alguien que está aplicando por DACA, siempre estamos también revisando su situación y estudiando su caso para ver si podemos encontrar otro camino a la residencia. En muchos casos, personas sí califican para hacer algo más, pero no saben, porque no saben las leyes, solamente escuchan lo que los amigos dicen, pero ellos no son abogados, ellos no entienden todas las leyes. A veces sí hay otras opciones, siempre estamos buscando todas las opciones que uno tiene. Ok, Magali dice, si mi esposo está en proceso con su caso para obtener su residencia, ¿podría sacar permiso de trabajo? Ok, Magali, eso depende en qué tipo de proceso él está haciendo. Hay unos procesos que sí, mientras que el proceso... mientras que la aplicación está en proceso, que sí puede calificar por el permiso de trabajo, pero hay otros casos que no. Por ejemplo, si está aplicando por la residencia y está aplicando por todo aquí, normalmente sí puede calificar por el permiso de trabajo. Pero si él está haciendo un proceso donde en el final tiene que salir del país, está haciendo el perdón profesional, con eso no puede calificar por el permiso de trabajo basado en ese caso. Por supuesto, eso no significa que no califica para hacer otro tipo de caso que sí lleva permiso de trabajo, pero Depende en su situación. So si quiere consultar sobre eso, sobre el caso de su esposo, para ver si podemos encontrar una manera donde ella puede calificar por permiso de trabajo, puede llamarnos para programar una consulta. Puedo revisar todos los papeles que fue metido con inmigración y hablar sobre el proceso que está haciendo ahorita, y puedo dar mi opinión si eso es la única opción o si él tiene algunas mejores opciones, ¿ok? Y de nuevo, nuestro número de teléfono es 772-539-8400. Ok, y hay otra pregunta aquí. Mi novio tiene 23 años, no tiene récord. Él llegó en el año 2007 y terminó high school. Él califica. So, basado en lo que está diciendo, si él llegó aquí en 2007, eso es hace 13 años, él entró cuando tenía 10 años. Si la fecha que él entró era antes del 15 de junio del 2007, probablemente sí él califica, ¿sí? Porque puede probar que sí que tenía menos de 31 años en 2012, que entró al país antes del 15 de junio de 2007, estuve aquí desde 2007, no tiene récord criminal y también terminó en high school. Sí, probablemente sí él califica. Y si quiere ayuda con la aplicación, puede llamarnos y hacer una consulta conmigo. Podemos revisar todo y podemos explicar cómo podemos ayudar con el caso. All right, Sharon is asking on TikTok, when are they starting to give appointments at Juarez? So they've already started scheduling new appointments in Ciudad Juarez, but from what I've seen so far, they're focusing first on the appointments that were canceled because of a pandemic. So I have already had a couple clients go. I actually had a client go today, and she was one that was approved prior to the closures due to COVID-19, and they rescheduled her appointment for today. So they're working through all of those first, and then they should start continuing on from there, scheduling more appointments based on the time when the cases were ready with the National Visa Center, and that the National Visa Center confirmed that everything was in order for the interview. So yes, they are starting to give appointments. Ok, Sarai Pérez está preguntando, hola, ¿hay algún problema para hacerse ciudadano si ha pedido seguro médico CHIP o Medicare? So, por la ciudadanía, no hay problema con eso. Si tenía ayuda, mira, menos si hizo mentiras o algo por ayuda, pero eso, no hay problema con eso. Ok, eso no preocupa. Sí, puede ser problemas para aplicar por la residencia, depende en qué manera está aplicando por la residencia y también si los beneficios eran por los niños o por la misma persona que está aplicando, pero por la ciudadanía no hay problema. Ok. Vale Paredes está preguntando, hola, apliqué a Change of Status to LPR en agosto y hasta ahorita no tengo la cita de biométricos. ¿Qué puedo hacer? Ok, so puede llamar a Migración, el número 800 de Migración, para avisarles que todavía no llegó la cita para los huellas, pero eso es algo que yo sé que en muchos casos ahorita ellos están muy atrasados en programando esas citas porque primero todas las oficinas estuvieron cerradas por mucho tiempo, eran muchas citas que están programadas y después canceladas. La inmigración tiene que reprogramar todas esas citas y también tiene que programar los citas por las nuevas aplicaciones. En muchos casos sí está tardando mucho más tiempo de normal, pero puede llamar a Migración para avisarles de eso y ver qué ellos dicen. Okay. All right, and another question here, how long to become a U.S. citizen? So once someone is a legal permanent resident, in general, they have to wait 5 years before they can qualify to become a U.S. citizen. But if you are married to a U.S. citizen and still residing with your U.S. citizen spouse, then you can qualify after 3 years, assuming that you meet all the other qualifications. So it's either 3 or 5 years, depending on your situation. All right, and All right. And if anyone has any immigration questions that you have, you can write your questions in the comments in either English or Spanish here on Facebook, on TikTok, or Instagram. And I will answer as many of your questions as I can. But remember that in this type of situation, I can only give general information about immigration. I cannot give you legal advice about what you should do in your specific case. If you want legal advice and you want to know what you should do in your case, then you would need to call and schedule a consultation with me, where we can talk about all the details of your situation and determine what the best options are for you. To give you an idea, so I know a lot of people think that, well, they just have one question. Why do they need to schedule a consultation? But our consultation process is very thorough. It involves first a full screening with my paralegal, where she helps complete a questionnaire, and she usually spends at least an hour, sometimes 2 hours, depending on the case, going through all of the information that I need for the consultation. And then you would also send any documents ahead of time related to your situation, related to previous applications, so that I can review all of that to be prepared for our appointment. And then during my consultation with you, I would just focus on any type of issues that I see, clarifying some questions that I have, and then we can really talk about what options you have and what I can do to help you and what the cost would be involved in that. But there are lots and lots of questions that we ask. And it's something that I could not do in this type of setting with someone, to really give you a full legal opinion on what you should do in your case. I always need to know a lot more information. So that's why I'm not able to do that in this type of setting. But any type of general questions I can answer, and you can write your questions in either English or Spanish, and I will answer as many of them as I can. Y para explicar en español también, puede poner cualquier pregunta que tiene de inmigración en los comentarios aquí en TikTok, Facebook o Instagram, y puedo contestar sus preguntas. Pero recuerda que en ese tipo de situación solamente puedo contestar preguntas en general, puedo dar información en general sobre inmigración, no puedo dar una opinión legal de qué debe hacer en su caso. Si quiere una opinión sobre cómo debe hacer su caso, cómo debe seguir con su caso, tiene que llamarnos para programar una consulta conmigo, donde podemos revisar toda su situación, todo su pasado de inmigración, casi toda su vida, para ver realmente qué podemos hacer por usted. Porque eso no es algo que podemos hacer en ese tipo de situación que no es confidencial, ¿no? Pero preguntas en general, sí. Ok, so pueden escribir sus preguntas, pero recuerda que no puede decir exactamente qué debe hacer en su caso. So no debe tomar las respuestas como un consejo legal. Ok. Tengo más preguntas aquí de TikTok. All right, Gatita, I see, got married in 2015, have one kid. I have not received my final residence. Does divorce affect my case? So Gatita, in order to answer that, I would need to know more about what type of application you filed. How did you file for your residency? Was it based on your marriage? In some cases, if it was based on your marriage, then yes, divorce before the approval could definitely affect your case. But I would need to know more information, okay? So I would suggest, you can, if you want to write more information in the comments, and I can see if I can give you a little bit more information, but otherwise you can schedule a consultation and we can talk about it in more detail, because I would need to know a lot more information about your case. All right, Alejandra, my husband is not here legally, but I am a citizen and I need a passport. Does that affect him? So applying for a passport would not affect your husband in any way. And of course, as far as helping your husband, I would need to know a lot more to see if there is a way that you could help him, or if there's a way that he could file on his own. But you applying for a passport would not affect him. Okay, and I see now the clarification, how long immigration is taking for the appointment for the citizenship is what you meant, not regarding how long you have to wait. So that depends on your local office. So for example, there are some local offices that may only be taking a few months from the time of the application to schedule an interview. I have the last couple that I've done here locally, I believe took about 8 or 9 months. But it's going to depend on your local office and also on your case. Sometimes it can be over a year. It really depends and it varies so much. If you go onto the USCIS website, there are posted case processing times for each case type. So you can select on there the N400 and select the local office where you are, and it will give you the average processing times. But those are just averages. They can still vary quite a bit, but that will at least give you a better idea of the wait time. All right, and Soraya está preguntando cuánto tarda una aplicación para padre de ciudadano. So técnicamente, cuando una persona que tiene que ser adulto para pedir los padres, sí, tiene que tener 21, cuando está pidiendo los padres, técnicamente la petición no tiene espera. No es como muchos otros tipos de aplicaciones donde tiene que esperar muchos años para ser elegible y para seguir con la residencia. So, la espera es solamente el tiempo que tarda para aprobar la petición, que normalmente es más o menos 1 año, a veces más rápido. Pero para hacer la residencia basado en esa petición, depende en su caso. Hay unas situaciones donde sí, uno puede aplicar por la residencia aquí cuando son padres de ciudadanos. Hay otros casos donde tiene que salir del país, y para salir del país y hacer el proceso del perdón, tiene que probar que tiene esposo o padre que es residente o ciudadano. So, muchas personas no califican por eso. Y por supuesto, no sé si eso es su situación o no, pero por ejemplo, si uno entra al país ilegal y tiene ahorita un hijo ciudadano de 21 años o más, para hacer la residencia, y tiene que, normalmente, por este tipo de proceso, tiene que tener una de dos cosas. Tiene que probar que tiene un esposo o padre que es residente o ciudadano para hacer el perdón, o tiene que aplicar basado en problemas que tenía con su hijo, como problemas de algún tipo de abuso emocional, abuso psicológico, y eso no es algo que afecta al niño, no causa problemas por el niño o la niña, pero a veces eso es una manera para aplicar por la residencia aquí sin salir del país. So, si un abogado en el pasado le dijo que no califica para aplicar basado en su hijo porque no tiene, porque sus padres no tienen la residencia y porque entró al país ilegal, quizás hay manera en su caso, pero tenemos que hablar en más detalle sobre toda su situación para ver si podemos encontrar los argumentos para calificar. So, si esa es su situación, puede llamarme. Podemos hacer una consulta y yo puedo ver si puedo encontrar la manera para ayudarle. Es que unos abogados, yo pienso que a veces no están pensando en una manera creativa, no están buscando todas las opciones. Y realmente yo sé de eso porque también en el pasado hay ciertas cosas que yo no sabía mucho tampoco, pero ahorita con mi experiencia, ahorita soy una abogada como certificado en inmigración por el estado de Florida, ahorita yo sé mucho más, ¿sí? Y eso a veces se pasa, ¿sí? Siempre están aprendiendo nuevas cosas, nuevas maneras para ayudar a nuestros clientes, ¿ok? So, si quiere consultar sobre eso, puede llamarme al 772-539-8400. Okay. Y sin your question, where are you located? So my office is in Florida, but because immigration is federal law, I can represent clients in any states. And I have clients in California, Texas, Virginia, New York. I have clients in lots of different states. And really, especially right now with COVID, it doesn't make much of a difference where you are because we can do everything by phone, video, email, mail, and that's the same thing that we're doing for our local clients right now as well, so that we can try to prevent the spread and be safe and keep everyone else safe. So if you want to schedule a consultation with me, then you can call and we can schedule. If you're not in Florida, then we can schedule a consultation either by phone or a Zoom consultation to discuss your case. Okay, and let me see, I have some other questions here. Okay, so Muhammad is asking, he said, I applied for a green card, which is I-45 based on asylum, and I made a few mistakes. What am I going to do now? So Muhammad, I would need to know then what mistakes you made. So in general, if there's some type of errors on if you're referring to errors on the form itself, it would depend on how important those errors are, what type of mistakes they are. If you made minor mistakes, for example, on your parents' birth dates or the dates that you resided somewhere, in general, I wouldn't be too worried about that as long as you answer the questions in good faith and weren't trying to hide anything. But if an interview is scheduled on your 45, you can always correct the information during the interview and correct the 45. The officer will correct it there for you. But if you're very concerned, then you could also try to contact immigration ahead of time and give them the corrections. But I would suggest, if you don't already have an attorney, that you consult with an attorney before doing any of this, before contacting immigration, to review what were those mistakes and what is the best way to correct them based on how serious they are. All right, and Lee is asking again, what state are you in? So again, my office is in Florida, but I can represent clients in any states because immigration is federal law. So if you want to schedule a consultation with me, you can call my office. Again, the phone number is 772-539-8400. All right, Sin is also asking, my boyfriend has misdemeanors. Is he able to fix his papers? So this would depend on what type of misdemeanors they are. There are many misdemeanors that would not cause any problems with filing for residency, but there are some that could be a problem. There's some that may require a waiver of admissibility and some extra paperwork, and there's others that could completely disqualify someone from qualifying for the residency. So I would definitely suggest consulting with an attorney and having them review his criminal record, review all the paperwork related to his criminal charges, and to really give you some individualized advice for him on what he can do and whether he's going to be eligible, whether that record will hinder his ability to obtain his residency. Okay. Let me see what other questions I have. All right, what do I think about the immigration reform? So, of course, it's hard to say for sure what's going to happen with immigration reform. I know that Biden has made a lot of promises that he's going to do certain things with immigration, especially within his first 100 days. So we are expecting some announcements regarding DACA being safe. TPS holders should hopefully be safe and not have to be worried about anything. There's also been some talks about possibly adding TPS for some other countries. So that will be exciting to see what's going to happen, because that could potentially open up some options for a lot of people. And also, of course, changes to the Muslim bans and a lot of the negative policies that Trump has enacted in the last 4 years. But as far as a true immigration reform and a change to the law, Congress will need to be a part of that. That's not something that the president can do alone. We are a lot more hopeful that he will be able to push through some things on the immigration agenda, especially now that the Democrats will be controlling the House, the Senate also, and the presidency. So it should be easier for them to get things done in the next 4 years. So it will be very interesting to see what happens, and hopefully there'll be some type of reform. But Okay, lo siento. Tenía un problema con mi computadora y no sé qué pasó. Lo que estuve explicando, también sí estuve explicando. Ok, sobre la reforma. La pregunta era si vamos a tener una reforma de inmigración. Y eso es algo que, por supuesto, nunca sabemos 100%, ¿no? Es algo que yo sé que el Biden dijo que él va a hacer muchos cambios a inmigración, especialmente en los primeros 100 días de su presidencia. Pero por una reforma realmente de inmigración de las leyes, necesitamos como una nueva ley por el Congreso. Tengo más esperanza que eso probablemente sí va a pasar en el futuro, especialmente que ahorita los demócratas tienen control de la House of Representatives, sí, del Senado y también de la presidencia. Probablemente eso sí es algo que va a pasar, pero no sabemos exactamente qué tipo de reforma vamos a hacer, vamos a tener, cómo van a cambiar las leyes. Tenemos que ver de eso. Lo siento, yo sé que yo tenía muchas preguntas en TikTok y Instagram antes de tenía el problema con el video, pero yo perdí todas esas preguntas. Si no contestó su pregunta, puede poner su pregunta de nuevo en los comentarios y puedo tratar de contestar su pregunta, okay? I know that there were a lot of questions in TikTok and Instagram before I had the problem with the video and it cut off. But I did lose all of those questions because the way that I'm live here, all of those questions went away. So if I didn't answer your question, you can go ahead and write your question again, and I will try to answer as many of them as I can. Okay, and on Facebook, so I have a couple questions here. First, Gloria says, for DACA, can you apply with a Mexican ID that is expired? I would have to double check the instructions, but I am pretty sure that for IDs that they will accept expired IDs. They also accept school IDs as an identification card. So I don't think that would be an issue, but it's something that you would need to double check the DACA instructions. I'm sorry. Sometimes some of the very minor details like that, I don't always remember, but let me see. I'm checking here. Yes, an expired ID would be perfectly fine for ID purposes. So you should not have an issue with that as long as you meet all the other qualifications. Then yes, that would work for your ID document. Okay. All right, and now I'm getting these other questions on Instagram and TikTok. All right, this question from I Am the Belle of Bull is saying, I sent my DACA application a week ago. Is it possible for me to drop out of school at the moment, or should I wait? So technically, to qualify for DACA, you are supposed to have either graduated from school or be currently enrolled in school. In my opinion, which may be a conservative opinion, I would say that technically you should be continuing to be in school throughout the time that you have DACA or graduate or get your GED. But if you're talking about college, now I see that you're saying of college, if you got your high school diploma or your GED, then you don't need to continue in school to qualify for DACA. You meet the qualifications and there would be no problem with dropping out if that was what you wanted to do. Okay, and Cia Acevedo is saying how to put in a case inquiry for a 601A waiver. So you can call the USCIS 800 number to put in a case inquiry if it's outside of processing times. And then there is also a way on the USCIS website that you should be able to submit an inquiry electronically. So either one of those ways you can do the case inquiry for the service request. All right, and Juana is asking, if we file the application for DACA, do you know how long the process will take? So it's hard to say for sure right now. I will say that the renewals have varied quite a bit. We had some renewals earlier in the year that were approved in only about a month or 6 weeks. Lately, I think the processing times are a little bit closer to 6 months. I would presume that we'd probably be looking at also a processing time around 6 months. But it's hard to tell for sure, especially because it's new that they're accepting the new DACA applications. I don't know if they're trying to rush them for any reason, or even if, internally, if they're sitting on them longer. I'm not sure. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I really couldn't say for sure how long they would take. My best guess would be probably around 6 months or so. Okay. Okay, and Tom, I see your question here saying that you're on OPT and you have an employer that will file the H-1B. Is this still possible? So Tom, I think, of course they can definitely file the H-1B as long as you meet all the requirements, and they can file the H-1B. Of course, even if you do get accepted in the lottery and get approved for the H-1B, the employment would not start until October. So as far as whether you would be able to stay here and change your status to H-1B here without having to leave the United States, that would depend on a lot more things, such as, until when do you have your OPT, and looking at the grace period and everything. So I would recommend that you consult with an attorney to talk about all those different things. But I don't see why, as long as you meet the requirements, why they couldn't file the H-1B. The issue would be, could you change your status here and stay here? Would you at some point have to leave the United States? I can't answer those questions for you, especially in this type of situation. So I would recommend that you consult with an attorney where they can review all your details and really see if this is going to be a possibility for you, if you're going to have any issues. All right, and Rascal is asking, saying, I have a work permit. If I got married with an American citizen, will my process be faster? So that depends on what type of process you're doing. And what basis you have a work permit. It could be faster. It could open up another option for you. It may not. I would need to know a lot more details from you. So if you want to schedule a consultation where we can review everything in your case and review all of your different options and what the best option is for you and the fastest option, then I would be happy to meet with you. So you can call my office and schedule a consultation. If you wanted to do that, again, our phone number is 772-539-8400. All right, and Alejandra is saying, me and my husband have been married for 5 years. He has stamped on his passport 4 times. Is there any luck? So Alejandra, I don't know exactly what you're referring to with being stamped on his passport 4 times. If you're referring to a temporary I-551 stamp, proof of his residency, and it's been 4 times already, meaning that it's expired every year and it's been 4 years, then that would be fairly unusual for it to take that long for him to get his actual resident card. But I don't know what you're referring to. If you want to write more and give me some more information to your question, then I can see if I can answer. But if not, of course, I would be happy to have a consultation with you. If you wanted to call and schedule a consultation, I can look at all of his documents. All right, and Alicia says, I got caught when I entered and I left on my own back to Mexico. Was that a deportation? I would need to know more information, Alicia. So being caught at entry can be various different things. So it could have been a voluntary return. It could be a deportation based on what you're saying, though, that you got caught when you entered and then you were in the United States and went back on your own. I presume that you're referring to that you were caught and issued a notice to appear and that they were going to put you in removal proceedings, but that you never actually went to court and just left on your own. If that is the case, then it is complicated. If the judge scheduled you to appear in court and you were already gone, then the judge would probably give you an an order of removal, an order of deportation in absentia, meaning in your absence if you missed court. But I would need to know more details about your case. Okay, so I would be happy to take a look at all the documents that you have and talk through it more, talk through whether you have any options for coming back. But based on your okay. So yes, it's hard to say whether that was a deportation or not. I would really need to know a lot more. And Sin, your question, how much is your consultation? So we charge $200 for the consultation, which includes, like I said, one screening appointment first with my paralegal, where she basically helps you fill out a questionnaire over the phone with all the information that I like to have for the consultation. That appointment with her is usually at least an hour, sometimes up to 2 hours, depending on your situation. And then I would have you email us any documents that you have that you want me to take a look at, any previous immigration documents, also, copies of your passport, birth certificate, basically all of your information, so that when we have the consultation, I have everything in front of me, and I prepare beforehand for the consultation and review it all so that I know what I need to know from you to give you an opinion. And then I would go over all of the different options that you have, the processing times, cost involved in those options, and we would discuss what the best option is for you. Okay. All right. And let me see what other... All right, Gisela is saying that she's filed for residency since July. How long until she finishes? So it really depends on what type of case you're filing based on. If you filed your 485 application here and you're just in here inside of the United States, it's going to depend on, on what basis you're filing. If you're filing, for example, based on some type of an abusive situation based on a VAWA case, together with the petition, with the VAWA petition, it usually takes 2.5, 3 years. If you're filing based on marriage and you're filing here, some type of an immediate relative category, then it's going to depend a lot more on your local office, because most of those cases will get scheduled for interviews, and it's going to depend on how backlogged your local office is with interviews. I will say locally, to give you an example, in West Palm Beach, we've been seeing cases being scheduled right now from February. So for those cases, it was about 11 months. But I've seen it vary quite a bit, but I would say around a year is probably pretty reasonable on average. But there's some immigration offices throughout the country that take closer to 2 years or even 3 years on average. Of course, if you're going through a process where you're having to leave the United States at the end of the case and doing a provisional waiver, then that could be a very different type of process and a very different timeline. All right, Cynthia's asking, do you know why they aren't letting us talk to customer service like to a real person? So of course, we've been having the same problem. I will say that it is easier to get someone on the phone when you call the USCIS customer service number, if you say that that you're calling for an InfoPass appointment. I've noticed that it's more likely that they will actually transfer you to a real person. So sometimes we have to do that, even if that's not our plan, but just to get someone on the phone so that we can talk to someone. So you might want to try that if you're calling. Just ask for an InfoPass appointment and see if that works. Okay. All right. And Aretha is saying, how can I bring my 50-year-old mother-in-law to North Carolina? So I don't know if you're referring to trying to bring her here with her residency or on a visa. If you're referring to trying to bring her here with her residency and she's your mother-in-law, then you could not file a petition for her directly. Your spouse, if he's or she is a U.S. citizen, could file for her, but you would not be able to file a petition for her directly for her residency. All right, so I would need to know need to know more there. All right, let me see what other. All right, and New G94 says, I came here legally to the US and I have DACA. My mom is a resident. Can she give me residency? So if your mom is a resident right now, she could technically file a petition for you. But as far as actually getting your residency through that petition, I would need to know some more information about you. In general, just showing that you came legally to the US and that you had a petition from your mother, you would not be able to actually adjust here, because anyone who overstays their visa can generally only adjust when we're talking about marriage petitions, family petitions, is through a petition from an immediate relative, which would be a US citizen spouse or a US citizen child over 21, or they're a US citizen parent, and that's if the child is under 21. So if you're still under 21, then if your mom had her citizenship, then she would probably be able to help you pretty easily. If not, you may at some point have to do a provisional waiver process where you would have to leave the United States to get your residency, and you would qualify for a waiver based on having your mom as a resident and showing, how she would suffer if you weren't able to stay here. If you've had DACA continuously since before 6 months after your 18th birthday, then you may be able to do that consular processing process without a waiver. But I would need to know some more information about your situation to really see what's the best option for you. Because just based on this, it's hard for me to tell you for sure what you could do, but likely your mom could help you in some way, but it's just a matter of how and how long is it going to take. All right, so if you want to schedule a consultation, then you can call my office at 772-539-8400. All right, and I am the Bella Fall is asking again, another question here. If I sent my application a week ago, when should I hear back from them? And I know you were referring to a DACA application. So in general, it usually takes immigration 2 to 3 weeks to send a receipt notice, at least confirming that they have the application, and then they would send an appointment for biometrics. I will say lately they have been backlogged in some cases. Sometimes we have been getting the receipts pretty quickly, and we've had other cases where receipts are taking a lot longer than usual. So it's hard to say there, but I would say in general, within a few weeks. All right, and Mimi de Garcia is saying, my husband did his fingerprints back in November of 2019, and we still haven't heard anything. What do I do? So as far as whether this is normal or not, I would need to know more information about what type of case he was applying for. There are some type of cases where it could be completely normal for it to be over a year now with no answer after doing fingerprints. There's other types of cases where it could be abnormal and he should have already had a decision by now. But I can't really tell you in your husband's case whether that's okay or not, whether there's a problem without knowing more information. Okay, so you can post more about what the application type is that you're referring to, or you can also schedule a consultation with me and I can review all his paperwork and talk more about whether I think that there's any issues in his case, also whether you're really on the best track for him or if he has better options. So if you want to schedule that consultation, again, our phone number is 772-539-8400. All right, Minerva says, can I bring my mother-in-law here with a tourist visa? I'm a U.S. citizen. So as far as tourist visas for people from any country are not easy. Of course, some countries are notoriously harder than others, but it's definitely something that she can try. Anyway, a tourist visa does not require an actual petition from someone, so it would not really matter your relationship as much. Of course, you could write a letter saying, you want your mother-in-law to come here, that you'll support her while she's here and what you're planning on doing while she's here. But whether she's going to get the visa or not, there's a lot of discretion involved in that. The main things that they are usually looking at the embassy for tourist visas are: does she have property? Does she have substantial assets in her home country? Does she have an employment, and especially some type of employment like a professional degree or something that would make it more likely that she would return, because it would be harder for her to work in the United States with that profession. They look at all these things. They also look at family ties, for example, to the home country, to determine if they're going to offer a visa or not. I do always recommend that when it's the first time applying for the visa, if there's some type of a big family event going on, like a quinceañera or a wedding or something similar, to try to present that also as the reason for needing the visa. Once they give the visa, then usually it's going to be a 10-year multiple entry visa, but that initial application is very important to convince them that she just wants to come and visit, because immigration is always concerned in these tourist visas whether the person just wants to get a visa to come here and stay in the US. But yes, you can, the short answer to that question is yes, you can definitely try to bring her with a visitor visa. Whether that process is going to be successful or not will depend a lot on the consular officer and also how the case is presented. All right, and Suraj Mars is saying, can I bring unmarried over 21 daughter with her kid? So in general, of course, I would want to know more information, but in general, when someone files for their adult child, I mean, really in most of the visa categories, a minor child could be a derivative and could be included in a petition and in the residency application. The exceptions to that are when it's an immediate relative petition, which means, for example, when a U.S. citizen is filing for their spouse, the children are not automatically included. The children have to be petitioned separately then as stepchildren, assuming that they qualify. Or if a 21-year-old U.S. citizen is petitioning for their parent, the parent's children, meaning the person's siblings, are not included in that petition. It would only be directly for the parent. And similarly, if a U.S. citizen is filing a petition for their child who is under 21, any children of that child would not be included. They would have to wait until the parent becomes a resident and files for them directly. But in general, and given the way that you're explaining it, can I bring unmarried over 21 daughter with her kid? It sounds like likely yes. If you are a U.S. citizen filing for your child that's over 21, then the child would be a derivative, and then the same if you're a resident filing for them. Right. Oh, and Maria Vargas, I see your comment. So happy for helping the hubby get his permanent residency. Congratulations. I'm very happy for you guys. Tell your husband that I said congratulations, and sure we will see you guys soon. I'm happy that everything worked out well. Right, so let me see. I'm just looking through to find the questions on TikTok and Instagram. All right, can a resident keep his or her residence if he or she is not currently residing in the U.S.? How to claim. So in general, a permanent resident needs to be residing in the United States to keep their residency. And they should not be leaving the United States, ideally for more than 6 months at one time. If a resident ever needs to leave the country for more than a year, I always recommend to apply for what's called a reentry permit, which you can request for up to a 2-year period. So for example, I have had people get offered jobs in other countries and they don't want to abandon their residency, so they request that reentry permit. So they can say, look, I'm actually really am going to be outside of the United States for this amount of time, but I plan to come back and resume my residency. As long as that reentry permit is approved for the reasons that they're asking for it, then they would be okay. But other than those situations where they're applying for a reentry permit, and they're outside of the United States and are not maintaining a residence in the U.S. and are outside of the U.S. for an extended period of time, then they could be found to be abandoning their residency. And that is something that can come up when they try to re-enter the United States. Border Patrol could actually look at their travel history and say that they think they abandoned their residency, and Border Patrol could do a couple things. They could try to ask the person to just sign a form giving up their residency, which of course, if they want to keep it, I don't recommend that anyone do that. But they could also put them in removal proceedings and say, okay, well, then you need to go and see a judge and prove to the judge that you did not abandon your residency. The other time that this can come up to be an issue is if someone's been outside of the US for many years, comes back in, and maybe they get lucky and they are let back in on their residency, but then later on they decide that they want to apply for citizenship. When they apply for citizenship, they're going to look at the travel history. And if USCIS sees that this person abandoned their residency, they can deny the citizenship and they can put them in removal proceedings. So that is something that people have to be very careful with. And when you're a resident, you should be living in the US. The US should be your main residence. I do always give people the example, for example, if you're living in the US, but you decide that you want to travel the world for 9 months. If you're traveling and going to many different countries, and you're maintaining your address here, you have bank accounts here, you have everything here, then immigration should not find that person abandoned their residency, because really, their residence is in the US and they're coming back to their residence in the US. But I would not recommend that someone, leaves the US for more than 6 months or a year, just thinking, oh, well, I need to go to my country and care for my parents, and think that it will be okay for them to just come back in. If you ever think that if you're a resident and you ever think you're going to be outside of the US for more than 6 months or a year, it's best to file that application for a re-entry permit beforehand to make sure that you're not going to have any issues with residency. All right, and Alex Rodriguez is asking on Facebook, he said, I look forward to starting. Quick question, how much money do I need to save up for immigration fees? Alex, so that's going to depend on which option we choose for you. So that's something that we'll have to talk about more in our consultation, but I will say in general, the application for the residency right now, the filing fee is $12.25. If there was going to be a petition from your spouse, that petition is usually $535. But that's something that we'll have to talk more about in your consultation, and as we discuss really what's the best option for you, and also depending on which case type you are doing, whether there's a way that we could try to ask to waive the immigration fees. Okay, so we'll have to discuss that more in your consultation. All right, but that at least gives you a little bit of an idea. Okay, Omar Orozco Estrada is saying, if someone is to exit the country with advanced parole under DACA, would their re-entry, if successful, be counted as a legal entry for a petition for residency? So yes, advanced parole with DACA, when you re-enter, it is considered being paroled in, which is the equivalent of entering legally, entering with admission, being admitted, when it comes to applying for residency under Section 245A of the INA. So yes, it would be counted as a legal entry. Now there are some issues. It doesn't relate to you as much with DACA, but there are some issues now with advanced parole with TPS. There was a recent decision, I believe it was in August, that anyone who has TPS and who travels on advanced parole after August of 2020, that their entry would not count for purposes of applying for adjustment of status. And that is based on some very specific language in the law related to TPS. But that decision does not apply to DACA, at least not at this point. It was just limited to TPS because of the variations in the law related to TPS. So yes, it would count as a legal entry for residency purposes, which is why a lot of people with DACA are always very interested in trying to apply for advanced parole. And just to review a little bit, some of the qualifications for advanced parole for DACA, you would have to prove that the reason that you want to travel is for an educational purpose, for school, for employment, or for a humanitarian reason. I will say the majority of people that have come to me to apply for advanced parole, the applications that I've worked on, it's usually that they're asking to travel for a humanitarian reason. For example, that they have elderly and sick grandparents that they want to go see, a family member that's going to be having surgery and they want to go over there to care for them and to see them. Those are usually the most common reasons that most people ask for advanced parole, and we do have to send proof of that. So if that's something that you are thinking about doing, then you would need some proof of that person, proof of your relationship to the person, but also proof of whatever's going on if you're claiming that they have a medical condition. Okay, and let me see what other questions I have here on TikTok and Instagram. All right, so Kay is saying, any chances for people who've been deported under Biden? So as with anything else, I mean, even now under Trump, sometimes there are options for people that have been deported to get their residency. And I'm talking, sometimes there may be options to bring them back to the United States, but also sometimes there's options for people that are here in the United States that have been deported and re-entered, or have been deported and never left. There could be options for them. Of course, things may change with the law under Biden, but even now, with the way the laws are now, sometimes there are options. So if you've been ordered deported and you came back in, or if you've been ordered deported and you're outside of the U.S., then call me and schedule a consultation, and we can review everything and see if we can find a solution for you. To give some examples of some of the ways that people can apply for the residency, even if they have been deported, is if they've been a victim of a crime, if they've been a victim of labor trafficking, which many immigrants have been victims of labor trafficking here. They don't realize that it's labor trafficking until we talk about all of their situation and talk about the abuses that happened at work, the lack of payment, the threats to call immigration. There are many people that qualify for a visa as a victim of trafficking. Or also if you're married to a U.S. citizen or a resident and had some type of marital problems, even emotional or psychological abuse, or if you have a child over 21 who was abusive in some way, even if it was, when they were a teenager and they were younger and disrespectful to their parents, sometimes there's a way that you could possibly apply for your residency, and even if you had been deported. Also, for some people that have been deported that are married to U.S. citizens, sometimes there is an option to apply for waivers for the deportation and for unlawful presence, but it really depends on the details of our case. So I would need to know a lot more, and there are really things that I would need to discuss with them in a consultation. In a private setting where we can talk about all of their past, what happened with the deportation, what has happened since then, and see what options they have. Okay, and all right, and Manny says, how long does it take after interview for the green card? So if you're referring to an adjustment of status interview here within the United States, from the time of the approval, we're usually seeing it take about a week or maybe 2 weeks at the most to get the green card in the mail. But that's going to depend also on whether they actually approve it right away and on your local office. But yeah, in general, within a couple weeks. All right, and Barbie Serrano says, I've been waiting on my replacement residency card for almost a year already. How long is it taking? So we have seen a wide range of timeframes with I-90 applications for replacement residency cards or renewals. I've seen some cases somehow get approved within just a couple months, but on average, I have seen usually around a year or more. And so you can call, if you've been waiting for a year now, though, I would suggest that you call the USCIS customer service number and see if they're able to do a service request yet. But it still may not be time yet. If you look up the USCIS processing times on the website, then you can also see, based on the office that has your I-90 application, how long they're taking. and if it's still within processing times, or if you're able to do a service request yet. Okay. All right. And I think this is going to be it for tonight. But I am always live on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram every Wednesday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, answering questions. So you can always come and ask your general questions when I'm live. But if you want a legal opinion about your case, if you want to know what strategy you should take, I would definitely recommend that you call me and schedule a consultation. I would be happy to meet with you, review all of your documents, and talk about the different options that you have. Again, my office phone number is 772-539-8400. Para explicar eso en español también, creo que eso va a ser todo para hoy. Pero siempre estoy en vivo todos los miércoles a las 5 de la tarde. Pero si quiere una consulta privada conmigo, si quiere una opinión legal, tiene que llamarnos para programar una consulta conmigo. Nuestro número de teléfono es 772-539-8400. Cobramos $200 por la consulta, y eso incluye una cita con mi paralegal, donde ella ayuda a llenar un cuestionario de preguntas que necesito para la cita, y después una cita conmigo donde puedo revisar todos sus papeles que tiene y sus respuestas, y hablar bien con usted sobre cuáles opciones tiene y cuál es mi opinión de cuál es la mejor ruta por usted conseguir su permiso de trabajo o su residencia. Ok, so de nuevo, nuestro número de teléfono es 772-539-8400. Ok, hola, que voy a hablar con uno de ustedes y programar una consulta, pero si no, voy a ver uno de ustedes cuando estoy en vivo la próxima semana. Ok, tenga buena noche y ojalá que voy a ver ustedes en vivo pronto.